Everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Apex, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing our series of the EWC preview series with Group Letter B. We've got Group B coming up here. Last week we did Group A. If you want to go check out all of our thoughts on Group A, we did with Onset, and it was a really good show. Awesome to talk about Group A. Now we have Jay in the studio. He is back, and he's going to be joining us for Group B. We've got a lot of banger teams here, lots of teams to get to. And without further ado, we're going to get into it. Before we do, though, don't forget to check out the Discord. And also, if you want the Apex the Podcast hat, it is right there.
I gotta get.
We've already sold some hats.
We've
already sold some hats. So
What's
go ahead
the
and check
time?
that out.
Do we know?
I don't know. You know what? I'll ask.
Probably depends by the place.
Somebody
too,
already
but
got
like,
theirs.
Yeah, somebody got theirs.
People got
Relative.
them,
Yeah, because I see it in the Discord, and then I had a friend who got one, and it was pretty quick. So I'll ask how long.
Yeah,
it took
I
for
only
them to
asked
get
because I'm like it's almost like I've been procrastinating on it because of the fact that I'm like the shipping's gonna take long, but I was like it probably won't. Like I've seen people get it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to take too long at all. But either way, the hat is there. It's available if you guys want it. We'd appreciate if you guys snagged a hat. If not, no big deal. It's out there for you guys. But boys, let's get into it. Jay, how are you doing getting ready for EWC? You ready for this?
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, LAN, it's the best time for Apex. I feel like Pro League, listen, I like Pro League. I'm not going to sit here and trash it, but I will say Pro League, it always just feels like the whole goal is just to get to LAN. That's all we really care about. Obviously, there's certain storylines that Pro League can introduce, but once all the teams are locked in, I feel like that's when everybody really starts to lock in on Apex, because LAN Apex is just, it's undefeated. So I'm getting ready for it.
Let's fucking go. Now, let's kick it off with our first team in Group B, and that is Wolves Esports. Wolves Esports pretty much dominated APAC South Pro League throughout most of the split. I believe they had 3 first places. I don't think they dropped below 5th place overall ever in the entire split. Just a dominant split for them, to be honest with you. And it makes me laugh every single time I see the Wolves logo, because in the Premier League, they were one of the worst Premier League teams of all time. They got relegated before like Christmas time. Absolutely insane. They were complete ass. But the Wolves Esports, the Wolves Apex team is dominant. They are dominant.
Say there's been times I've like I think it was for the last EBWC recap, and like I had Wolves in there obviously because they got top 5, and I had people being in my comment section being like, "What the fuck? Can they just steal the what? It's like Wolverton, is that right? Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
They could see Wolverhampton's logo. I was like, no, they own the team. Like,
yeah,
and they're like, they own a team, and why? Like, why? Like, I was like, why not? Like, why not own?
I actually think it's sick. I think more teams should do it. Like, that's badass. I mean, even in at some points we've had, I think Saudi soccer clubs also have teams in Apex, if I remember correctly. Al-Qadsia, I think.
Al-Qadsia,
yeah. So Wolves Esports, they were dominant the entire season. Regional final, I guess, if you wanted to get technical, the regional final, they did get their worst placement, which was 7th, but still all top 10 finishes, all dominant all the way through. When it gets into Wolves Esports here, I'll throw it to Jay first. What makes this team tick? Why should people get behind Wolves Esports? How are they so dominant?
They're just one of the best zone teams in the world. They're really good at getting like dead center zone, and a lot of people give a ton of hype to this guy No Name, which he's been around. He has changed his name a few times, but now over the last year or so, he's really made a name for himself. Ironically, with the name No Name. But he's just a demon from the center zone when it comes to using those ranged weapons to get like crazy picks or damage. This might be like too much gas, but I feel like he's like the APAC South version of Monsoon in terms of that like deadliness. The amount of clips that you see from Monsoon just being able to sit there, he's got a charge rifle and he's just picking people off like crazy. That's what No Name does. The guy always has insane damage numbers, and his damage differential is like through the roof because he's usually sitting dead center zone. He's not having a lot of damage coming back his way, and he's just dealing it from deep. Obviously, add on to the fact that, like I said, they're really good at playing zone. They're really good, I think, at transitioning in those final few circles, even when they don't maybe have the most ideal position. They can take the spot that they're in as long as they can make it to those last like 10 remaining squads and convert that often into like really big games. So yeah, I mean, this team, they're always going to be deadly on LAN. And I know that last week y'all were asking the question about like the group of death. I do find it interesting that all of you were like, this group, this is all the aggressive teams. And I think that almost plays into this squad's hands, because while everybody else is just killing each other and inting everything all out on the edge, Wolves can be one of those squads that I think can just rotate a little bit quicker, go sit in zone. And while you guys are going to go kill each other on the edge of the map, No Name will just pick a couple KP off of you with the charge rifle. So yeah, these guys, they're really good. I mean, if you don't believe me, go watch the midseason playoffs last year where they got top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Jumper,
go ahead.
I was gonna say the vibe I'm starting to think about Wolves are almost like the next VK Gaming, which is it like I don't know if they're at the point that like ready to win yet, they probably could, but I'm like kind of like VK Gaming. We saw them make like that split 2 playoff final, then they made like 3 finals straight, and then they finally broke through and won. But they were always kind of like in the talk of match point and everything like that. These guys, they got a 5th under their belt last year. They missed finals in Japan, so like that's what I mean. Like why maybe they're not there exactly yet, but I believe it's No Name has also made finals like multiple times before, or at least one time before when it comes to lands. And the other two, like they've made lands, they're getting more experience under their belt, and now they're getting like the pro league experience, like, you know, like winning Apex South. I know last week we talked about how like it's a top heavy region, but we've seen so many good teams out of Apex South that I think it is a region that if you are topping the charts there, it means something, like kind of like NA. That's how I feel about it. Even though like, yeah, we talked about like how there are those some like, you know, lower place teams you could take advantage of. It's just like that midseason playoffs last year, 3 of the top 5 teams were Apex South teams, for example, right? So anyways, yeah, like it's a team that I think is like, you know, might break through like within the next, you know, few lands, if not this one.
Donnie, I just wanted to ask if you kind of follow along with that same sentiment. Do you think that maybe they need a little bit more experience before they can finally win one? Or do you think that the ceiling for them right now is they could win this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're going to be in the mix for a team that can win. You know, I wouldn't put them probably like a guaranteed top 3 or 4 or anything right now, because I just think there's some other teams that things just got the meta kind of fits them a little bit more. But I mean, they've done about everything they could have done for a pro league. You know, they played extremely well, picking up multiple match day wins, like you said. I think my biggest question I'll just always have is when they get into these 3v3s with other really, really good teams that also are good at 3v3s, do Win and Crazy Kong both hold up? Because we know what No Name's going to do. I mean, he, even when they didn't make finals at Champs, he was, I believe, 11th in kills for Champs last year, which, again, to his credit, he's proven multiple times that he's that guy, and he's definitely going to show up. It's just, again, when it gets to those 3v3s, do the other two, can they kind of hold up that same performance? So that would be the question I have. Like Jay said, they're going to be one of the better teams getting to zone and playing their spot well. It's just then, can he convert that into the big KP wins? And he saw them miss out on that at Champs, but he also go back to midseason playoffs last year and they got 5th place. So like they've shown they can be in that situation. They show that they've done it before. Now it's just, can it be a consistent performance, you know, land to land? So I think they've had enough time together as a roster. So I do think they, like I said, they will be in the mix. I definitely see a top 10 for sure for these guys as long as things go well. But it's just, again, the 3v3s, and then is there maybe some looming doubt from that last year Champs run where things didn't necessarily go so well? But I do think they also, they got 22nd or 23rd? Like, they were right in the mix. 23rd. So, yeah, it wasn't even like they really missed finals by that much. So I do expect a lot of good things out of them. And the biggest thing, too, you know, they picked up a lot of top 5s. They had some of the better top 10 percentages, top 10s converting to top 5. So, like, all the numbers say that they are in really good form. So I expect some good things for them for sure.
I think oh, sorry, you want to go ahead?
I was just going to say something to keep in mind when they got that 23rd. I put them in my top 5. So I just want everybody to know they are nowhere near my top 5. They are banished from the top 5 forever. So do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. They might win the whole thing now, but they're banished from my top 5. They're on my no list.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I've like VOD reviewed a ton of Wolves esports, but like one thing that's interesting when you bring up the fighting comment is I think back to that game that like Gen.G, Kraber to the back of NIP, and then like Wolves wins that game, which like really like puts them up into that top echelon of the standings at the midseason playoffs. But the crazy part is they secured a great spot by third partying ROC and killing ROC to like get the game winning position basically. But the funny thing is ROC, after like winning a fight against SAUL and being very weak, almost actually killed not Crazy Gong, Wolves, and literally like was left down to a solo. So I maybe that's like a testament to like what you're saying, like their 3v3 fighting might be their one thing that they might be their what's the fatal flaw. I don't know. That's not what I was gonna go with, but I'll say it.
Achilles heel.
Achilles heel. That's what I was trying to think of.
Much better way to say that. To be
That's
honest.
what I was trying to think of. Fatal flaw is what came to mind. I got Shakespeare on my head.
There it is. There it is. Okay, so that is Wolves Esports. Obviously, they're going to be like a big favorite heading into this one, so keep that in mind. And for anybody who hasn't seen them, definitely not going to be a team that you're going to want to leave off your list. I'm just personally leaving them off mine. Let's move into the second one here, and this is Virtus.Pro, Taskmaster, Prestus, and Ausis in EMEA. They were the second seed overall, and they had a fantastic pro league as well. First, third, second, fourth, and then their regional final, was a sixth place overall. Now, Don, I'll throw this one to you first. What exactly is the story with this Virtus.Pro team?
I mean, honestly, it feels like the EMEA version of Wolves with how they played this split. You just needed to find wherever that zone 2 or zone 3 middle was, and that's basically where VP was at this split. It seemed like they did a really good job of reading zones a lot of the time throughout this split, which I was super impressed with. And I had totally forgot, which just apparently my lack of ball knowledge, but I forgot that this roster had that previous 5th place at EWC a couple years back.
I was going to ask that. I was going to say, is this like the
yeah,
trio?
It's what, DMS or DMG, whatever that name was, I
DMS.
believe. But yeah, so we've seen them even do it on land before. Obviously, it's been a little while now, but I mean, again, I was extremely impressed with not only their ability to be in middle zone and read things well, but also, again, just picking up a ton of KP. Prestus was second in EMEA with 99 kills. They had the most kills of the team, the best damage differential, the most damage dealt. I mean, a ton of the numbers for a team that is playing a lot of the middle parts of zone is quite impressive when you put the two together. So you put it along with the consistency, like you said, in their placements. I know EMEA isn't always the best bar sometimes with how the entire pro league can look, but it is still something that they are that consistent, because the biggest thing you see at LAN is consistency. That's going to win out at the end of the day. So I do see a lot of good things for these guys. What the exact ceiling is, I'm not 100% sure, just because, it's been a couple years since they've been on LAN together. But again, a lot of the numbers, 65% converting top 10s to top 5s, and a lot of other good numbers in there are in their direction. So I definitely expect them to be a finals team. And I just truly think they got a pretty good pulse on things right now in terms of, their rotations and taking smart fights. And again, just even in their 33s, they look really good. So we'll have to see how it looks out against everybody else. But so far, for a team that's triple M and K, they, I think, are going to fight with a lot of teams, and they surprise a lot of people that don't watch EMEA much.
Jay, what's your read on their ceiling and floor? Because obviously, like, they do have a decent performance in their back pocket, but also, do we know exactly what that translates to now? It's always, different as we get further and further along. Do you kind of see them as a finals team? Do you see them as a contender to win it? Or is it more just kind of up in the air because they're a little bit of a question mark?
I find this team really interesting because I don't know what their ceiling and floor is. Like, I know that they were good this Pro League split, and I know that we talked about that EWC run, but that EWC run was the only thing they did that year. Like, they didn't qualify for any of the other actual ALGS events. Yeah, and so I don't know. It just feels a little confusing because it's like, okay, the one time we did see them on LAN, they popped off, but that was also one of those LAN lobbies where it went 13 games. It's the longest LAN finals we've ever had. The format of that year was also it was the classic EWC format where there wasn't group stages. So to me, that's where I think they're going to get tested is the group stages. I know that Task has been to a multitude of LANs, so he's played in those kind of lobbies before, and I think his experience is going to be really valuable there. But also, I know like this team relied pretty heavily on Mad Maggie throughout the split. Like, just being honest, you don't get 1,500 damage a game for Prestis. I'm pretty sure the split, unless you're playing a character like that can kind of inflate those numbers. And I'm not saying he's not that guy. Exactly, and that was the reason I was going to bring it up. Is like she just got nerfed, and I think that some of those nerfs can be a bit detrimental to a couple of teams that we talked about today. And so that's what I want to see from them in scrims is like, how do they adjust to some of the changes in the meta? But also, like I said, I don't know what the ceiling and floor is for this team. Like, I do believe that they should make the finals based on what we saw out of them this split. But at the same time, we've seen EMEA teams in the past where, you know, this region, it doesn't always perform on LAN. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And the one thing that stands out to me about that year 4 EWC that they popped off at, that was EMEA's best performing LAN, I think, of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember that was a huge narrative that was being talked about at that event was, I think 7 of the 9 EMEA rosters made it to that finals lobby. That's like mind-boggling numbers for this region, considering that historically it was like Alliance and then who of the other teams, like the 1 or 2, are going to join them in a finals lobby. So I do think they should make the finals, but I think their floor is pretty low. Just being honest.
Yeah, like you wouldn't be surprised if you saw them out early.
I don't know if I'd say bottom 6, because I do think what we saw out of the split feels like more consistent than bottom 6. But like, I think I wouldn't be shocked if they, you know, narrowly miss out. They have to go down to that the Survivor Series lobby, and then in that 10-game series, maybe they just don't quite have the consistency. And I think the consistency in that one is so big because remember last year, NRG in that final series won 2 games and did not qualify.
Yeah.
They didn't finish top 6. So that's where I'm like, I expect these guys to be finals because, like Don said, they're like the EMEA Wolves. They play a very consistent play style. They're getting into zone. That should get you points. But at the same time, I know you guys brought it up a lot last time in the episode of Onset. Sometimes you can have those lobbies where zone goes your way. What happens if they have lobbies where the zone is not going their way at all?
And that's actually what I was thinking about, because like when they won their days or like had good placements at the beginning of the split that I remember going back and having to look at a couple of those things, and it was like really opportune zones. Like, you know, that zone that I've complained about a bunch that ended on the inside of that building by E District and Humbert. And then like the team like Valcall did it. Yeah, I think they won that game for like, right. And like, you know, like that's, I don't want to discredit if you're winning a lot of games, but it's like, you're not going to always get that, like where like you get inside a building that is just unpushable and you just basically win to zone. Right. So it's like over a 10-game series, if you can't counter that or like work with that, like what happens? I'd have to double check if for sure if it was that, but I remember it being one of the like Russian squads.
I did want to say too real quick, because I know Jay brought up the Maggie thing. Even if she still is meta and the other nerfs aren't too bad, with how much these APAC teams love to play her, you've already seen it in scrims where she's getting banned super early. So that is a good point that she may not be available for these guys past game 2. I mean, we've seen Crypto still be banned first, but then Maggie's been getting a lot of game 2. If not game 2, it's been game 3. So that's definitely a good point. I still feel like personally for me, I put them pretty locked in for finals. Just
and again, I would agree. Gun to my head, I agree.
But I see the point you're making for sure. But like I said, I mean, honestly, for me, I'll even go as far as say I think personally they're going to finish top 10. You know, I don't know where from there, but that's just how I've just watching them fight. And again, just reading the zones as good as they have, even for zones that have pulled away from them, I felt like they've actually played them pretty well because they have done pretty well in their fights. So I'm very excited for them, very high on them. So I personally think they're top 10 for me. But like I said, we'll wait and see.
I have to take back what I said. It was they weren't even in the lobby the day I was talking about. But I do remember from like the first couple of days of the
hey, you had me sold. You had me sold.
I know, but I'm not gonna sell no bad info.
Yeah, yeah. I would never either. Just not my style. Let's move into the third team here, boys. And this is a fan favorite, I would say. I mean, I don't know for sure. I just think people really like this team because of the style that they play. The question is, are they going to continue that style? And that is Team Unlimit. We've got Ilari Man, Suvi, and my boy Peace.
You might call Kyle real quick and get him
Yeah,
on
we might
there.
need to call Kyle and get him on the show to talk about Unlimit, a team that he lost so many bets on, he was forced to just respect it and then pick them as his favorite team. Their match day performances throughout Pro League in APAC North, second, 13th, 12th, 1st, and then the regional final, they got themselves into that 8th place. Now, Unlimit made a lot of noise at the last LAN. They made a lot of noise indeed. But then they get to that finals lobby, and I believe Jay was on the desk warning everybody, hey, this is the one that they're going to struggle on, and struggle they did. They just didn't have that ability to not throw themselves at anything and everything, causing them to kind of slip down that leaderboard a little bit, and then ultimately not have their best day. Now, they still got 10th, which I guess isn't the worst thing in the world, especially for a younger team. But obviously, they want to grow. They want to continue to get better, and they want to see that 10th. They want to drop to 0 on that, see if they can just get a first. Jay, I'll go to you first for this one. Do you think that Unlimit has learned from their past, or do you think that they're still doomed to repeat what happened in Japan?
I don't think that they've learned. They should make the finals because ultimately they're still like an incredible fighting team. But like just to be honest, they don't have macro. They did not have any macro. And for the listeners who like maybe don't understand what that means, they don't have like when they spawn in, here's our POI. There's not like a set game plan of like here's our pathway to zone depending on where it pulls. They just kind of played the game. And that shows how talented these guys are because the fact that they're able to get 10th in a finals lobby, just kind of doing that is pretty crazy. But also when you go back and like look at some of the games that they're playing in the finals, like that there's that one game where obviously like Falcons like lose to Fnatic, right? But I remember when I was talking about that game from the Sentinels POV, they get like caught out on rotate and Thieves kill them and Blinkster has to rotate like across the map to try and go reset because they had no crafter anywhere close. Like they're all the way in the bottom right corner of the map and they had to move all the way towards Oasis, right? And they end up dying because Unlimit is just like sitting over there. They've just been over there for like
driving around and trying
8 minutes. Yeah, they're just hanging out. They hit a survey scan and they're like, solo there, balloon and kill him. Which like I don't care about the balloon and kill him part, but it's the fact that like, why are they still over there? Like, what are you doing? And so I think their strategy revolves around we're just gonna drive around the map and we're gonna get evos and we're gonna scan stuff and we're just gonna get anything we can to get the best loot and purple armor as possible. And that's okay. But like this is something that we criticized Godlike in America's Pro League, the whole split, where they were just taking way too long to try to get in. And the difference is, I guess, Godlike, they tried to like identify a spot and then slam it. Unlimit doesn't even do that. They just show up with all their armor and all their loot, and they just diff people in fights. And it works to a point, but the thing that I kept arguing the entire LAN, and the thing that I said even in the tier list beforehand, because I know that was a bit of a spicy take. Everybody, like people were respectfully, Greek and Wig were saying these guys are like a favorite to win the tournament, and I just could not disagree more because they don't have macro. They can diff people, and that will show up in scrims. They will look really good in scrims. When you get to those LAN finals lobbies and you got teams like who typically, because we know that like Wolves or VP, they're always going to be rotating the zone. But in the finals lobby, the squads like a Falcons, who typically are running it down on edge in groups, they're getting into zone too because they know it's time to win games. That's where I think things just get difficult for this squad. And so I just don't believe, I'll hand up, I haven't watched like a ton of their VODs of the split. I watched a couple of the APAC North days, but I haven't like done an in-depth VOD review to know if they've like dramatically changed their play style. But I feel like if they had, this would be much more of a talking point. So, I mean, I know, Don, you've probably watched more APAC North than me. So when I finish this, you can maybe correct me here and tell me I'm like dead wrong and these guys have just developed a master game plan. But I just don't think on this short notice from champs to now that all of a sudden they're like, wow, guys, this one LAN, we clearly need to all of a sudden develop macro. So I think they should make finals. And in the finals, I think they're even capable of just killing enough people to get like a top 5. But in terms of winning, I just don't see it. And even that top 5, I think the percentage chance is low, because you got to be able to win games. And in a finals lobby, when everybody's super locked in, that's very difficult to do if you are always going to be the last team in. And that's what they're going to be.
I mean, Jumbo, we've talked so many times about how Edge is probably the hardest it's ever been right now with the legends and everything going on. A team like this, there could even be an opportunity for maybe just like an absolutely horrid performance. Now, mind you, they're still really talented. They're still very good and they can still get kills. But could you see that in the cards for Unlimit?
So obviously group stage works different this time, where it's like similar to the typical Apex like group stage, but still 6 teams do get eliminated, which doesn't happen in a typical Apex LAN. Because last year they were one of the first 3 teams out, I believe. Now the caveat is
the
caveat is they didn't have Peace back then, and like Peace, like, you know, like Yulari Man gets all this hype, but Peace is just like up there too with like his ability to, you know, frag out and everything like that. But like to add on to like some of like what Jay was saying, like, you know, there was a period of time I was debating doing an Unlimit video, so I was going through a lot of like their champs VODs and everything, and it might be the most frustrating 10th place that I have ever witnessed, like that I've watched, because it's like to see a team hit match point, get 10th place, and exactly what Jay's saying, just 0 macro, just running down squads. It was like I'm watching this and I'm like, if they actually just play the game, they probably could fucking win. Like, but like
so
they just don't play the game.
I'm pretty sure it's group stage or bracket stage, but there's one set where they were landing like over in the bottom right of the map, and they weren't in Summers. They were in what is it called? Icarus, right next to them. They're in Icarus, and the zone is pulling Summers, and they could so easily get like an incredible spot, gatekeep everybody, probably get a ton of KP and get a top 5, and instead, like they kind of just sat there and then shot Falcons for a little bit as Falcons tried to rotate through, and then Falcons go past them, and then they go all the way over to Hydro. And it's like, guys, the zone's right there.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
If you want, like, for the listeners, the best comparable would be they are an insanely talented, amazing, gifted free thinkers. Like we joked about free thinkers like and shit like that. And
people
it's
think
what
that's
they
like
do.
it's true.
Like
It's true.
it's like that's why I'm saying it's frustrating, because it's like they're one of my favorite teams to like because of how good they are. But it's
they're
holy
electric, dude.
Yeah, like if they just like learn that and play that sort of like just typical competitive Apex style, it's like, what the fuck could their potential be? And like the teams, like, I mean, it's pretty easy to identify them. If there's someone in a weird ass spot and running an Ash, you're like, that's Unlimit. But like Jay brought up that one game with like Oblivion that they lost, like where they killed them out on Edge. There's another game, Oblivion's just like out just in front of Down Beast, and for some reason an Ash team is just running at them, die, and then like immediately died right after. They're on match point, I believe, at this point. It's like, what are we doing this for? So it's like drives me insane, right? Like,
okay, so because I remember talking to Sentinels when I interviewed them about remember the Down Beast game that ends like right to the north of Down Beast at Northpad, where E36 almost won the LAN, and instead it was like Alliance and Virtus.Pro, the MT Virtus.Pro team, and I think Virtus.Pro wins the game. That game is ending just to the north of Down Beast, and Unlimit are landing at Down Beast. Every single team probably in the world, except for like obviously like the teams like Free Thinkers or Unlimit, and even I don't know. I wonder what Free Thinkers, if they were in that spot, would have done. They sit on top of Down Beast. That's all they do. You just sit there and you gatekeep everything from the south, right? Instead, there is a little skirmish over at Mill between E36 and Sentinels on Rotate, and Unlimit come and third party and just leave Down Beast. Unlimit lose out on 2 of their members, and they have to go reset all the way at Cenote, and the Down Beast, I think, was still open, and they instead go to Cito to third party Falcons,
kill Falcons,
and whoever they were fighting. And I remember talking to Hal about it too.
They won the fight. They won the fight, by the way.
And Unlimit won. They won.
But
so
Falcons were losing it because like, why are they here?
Yeah, they killed like multiple match point teams in that game, which E36 I think was the one who came out on top in that like Mill skirmish, and so that's why they were able to get into such a good spot, because Unlimit just like left the Rotate open when it shouldn't have been, right? Because they just wanted to go kill some people. So that's what I'm talking about. Like there's literal games where they are gifted zones, and instead they go take some really dumb fights because that's just how they play, and somehow it like worked. Yeah. Like the fact that game, they ended up not dying at the Mill fight, and then third-partying Falcons and eliminating a match point team, people were loving Unlimit for that. But in terms of their chance to actually win, it's just if they play like that, it's just not going to happen because you have to take the easy ones. If they get a super hard zone, if you're landing lightning rod and it's pulling like Echo, I get it. It's a hard zone. You got to do some different stuff. But when you get those easy slam dunks, you have to take them, and they just don't.
And so with the way that the survivor stage works, I don't know if they're a lock. I would say for me, I don't know if they're a lock for finals because I remember they were in losers round 2 for Japan, and they were in like last going into the second half.
Yeah.
And I was the one that I was on the desk for, and they were throwing Unlimit to me. And so I just know that they can drop fucking nukes. And so like without anything, I'm just like, hey, I don't think they're out of it. I think that they could come in here because we know that if they need to drop a 25-point game, they can. And they dropped 2 25-point games and won the set with 73 points. That's not unfortunately a sustainable play. It was insane. I was like so happy I said that shit. Can't believe like it worked, but like especially in a 10-game series survivor stage, if they fall into that and they need to get top 6, it's not a sustainable way to play. So in this format, I'd actually say I don't know if they're a lock for finals. Yeah.
I mean, literally, I said earlier, NRG won 2 games last year in the Survivor Series and didn't advance. So having that pop-off potential is good, but you still have to have some level of consistency in the other games. And the one thing that I worry about with this team is the lobbies where everybody gets really desperate. And that's a lobby where people will be desperate because those are the ones that all the pros say are the hardest lobbies to be in. Because if you don't make finals, you're making chump change. You want to be in that finals lobby for a chance to win. And so everybody starts rotating faster. They get way more disciplined. They get back to the like foundational apex. And I think that makes it harder for a team like Unlimit who wants to just catch some guys out on the edge in like a bad rotate on bad timings.
The last thing I'd wrap up is just I'd say like one day, and like, you know what, they might steal something, do some shit, crazy shit, but one day these guys are actually going to implement macro and learn it. And I think they'll be the most insane team we'll experience at Apex.
Yeah, I mean, that series you were talking about right there, Jumbo, where it was like they were basically last, that was the infamous Kyle has bet on Peace and Yulari Man to go over. They completely suck. He's like, I'm betting their unders in the second half, and then they ripped off 2 20-point wins. That's why he respects them now. That is why. For anybody who doesn't know Kyle, Grab My Banner podcast, my other show, when Donnie came into town, he was chasing Unlimit the entire night, and finally at the end, I think he lost like 6 bets in a row, and he's like, he threw his hands up. He's like, they're my team now. I have no choice. Honestly, I have to respect them.
Like, yeah, and I know that Kyle probably didn't know this going into betting on them. It's the worst team to bet on because like there's zero predictability of what you're getting with them. You have no clue what's happening. Now, Don, I know they kind of went off a lot on Unlimit, but I do want to ask about like the macro, the micro. Do you think it's more of a stubbornness thing where it's just like, we're just going to go fight? Or do you think it's something that they just lack at like, do you think it's just something that they just can't really do?
I mean, honestly, I just think it's because they just think they're different, bro, which they are. Like, don't get me wrong. They can fight, but I mean, it doesn't really feel like to me it's a stubbornness. I just think it's truly like, that's how they see the game. Like, that's how they want to play. That's how they're comfortable with playing. I think the biggest thing that I really want to see between this year and last year is that a big thing they really counted on with these fights, which we'll obviously get to Gen.G in a bit too. They counted a lot on crypto to be able to open up damage in fights, get that information early, so they can dive on some of these teams with Ash port or with Ash TP, with Portion teams. Like that was a character they based a lot of their fighting around, and now crypto's getting banned game 1, and even with these changes coming up, I still think he's going to get banned game 1. So what is their plan now that they're going to be going up against teams that are also really good at fighting at this land? Because it's one thing with APAC North. Again, we've talked about it enough times. Like, they can out-diff most teams in APAC North. So now when you get these higher lobbies, you don't have that innate damage to start off these fights. What's it going to look like now at land on top of already all the other problems? Because to Jay's answer, no, they haven't changed shit when it comes to their play style.
I figured.
Because if you guys want to know their first 6 games, their comps for regional finals, they played the ring console character of Axel Crypto Bang. That's obviously a joke because they did not play ring console the first 6 games at all.
Which, by the way, was the same thing that they did at Champs. They don't play ring console.
It was literally
what do you need a ring console for?
Axel Seer Maggie, Axel Valk Bang. Like, they
Dude,
did
I bet
not
in
play...
BLGS, if they play Pathfinder, they're taking Recon.
They could, yeah,
Probably
probably,
because you can find people with it.
But it was funny because in Game 7, because I'm assuming they probably hit match point after Game 6. Game 7, they were playing like Caustic, Rampart, and Altar or something. And I was like, okay, are they like trying to practice like playing in like a match? I don't even know.
Match point lobby. They're like,
yeah, like
should we try this shit out?
Should we practice now?
I can super glide off a rampart wall.
Yeah.
I can super glide off a rampart wall. We can do this.
it was pretty funny to see as I was going through that stuff. But yeah, they haven't changed anything. You know, we know what kind of team they're going to be. I truly think that I could see them making finals just because their style fits group stages of like, hey, let's just get as much points as we can, and whether that's 800 points through KP and 1 through placement, we still will qualify based off of that. So we'll see, you know, how things play out again, because it really is going to come down to like how well they can fight on the day. And just when you go up against all these other teams in the world that are also really good at fighting, you really are just, is my shot better than this other team that day? That truly does feel like the difference. And it's just, again, it's not sustainable. You know, it's really not going to be a team
Definitely
that
not.
you think is going to win a match point lobby. It's going to take a lot to go their way. I mean, one stat even to like, I'll throw in there just to kind of re-enhance our point is I think they have like a 61% of getting to top 10, but they convert less than half of those to a top 5.
The opposite
so like,
Gen.G.
When so it's just like
that 50% conversion rate.
Yeah. So it's like when you have a number like that, where like you're getting to top 10 because you're probably picking off all the weaker teams. But then when you get to where teams are just in really good spots of zone and you can't get in because you haven't thought about your pathway to zone the entire time, it's just, again, it's just not going to work. The numbers aren't going to be in your favor when it comes to these higher tier lobbies. And like these guys have said, if they find themselves in the Survivor Series, it is very hard to only play for KP in those kind of series. So
watch this.
It's gonna be tough.
Depending on POI draft, watch them fucking draft next to Gen.G like all the time. And the two of them are going to go out bottom 3 because it's going to be head to head of them clashing for 3 sets straight of fucking.
I will say it'll be
Gen.G
incredible entertainment to start off the game. We talk about no contest. If we want to at least have some entertainment to start with, it could be these two teams laying next to each other. Who knows?
3 sets of them.
Yeah, I remember when Kobe was playing. There was a meme that was going around, which just there was like a thing that like Kobe didn't like to pass. So there was like a meme where it was just Kobe's face, and it would say pass, just get the rebound. I feel like with Unlimit, it's ring console, just kill the lobby. Like it's just like to them that is the mindset. It's a one-track mind, kill the whole lobby. And listen, as far as winning goes, not a great strategy. Entertainment wise, we talked about free thinkers a fuckload on this podcast, a lot more than we probably should have. This is just like the upgraded version of that. And so I think a lot of people are going to have fun with it. Fuck it.
I mean, it was Skittle, right, Jay, that said sometimes you just get chosen by Unlimit. And it's just like, if you got pro players saying stuff like that about you, you've got the highlight reel coming, man. It's incredible.
Yep. They're the perfect like epitome of like those hype edits where it's like, you can't play like that. You can't do that. And they're just like, we don't care. And then they just fucking,
they don't care.
It's just that.
They don't care.
And I will say too that the fun thing about them last champs was that they were just killing a lot of match point teams. Like I don't think they were intentionally hunting match point teams.
Match point, man.
But the match point teams are like, let's rotate to zone, guys, and they're like, let's rotate away from zone, guys, and they both have to just kind of meet each other, and Unlimit kills them, and you're like, hell yeah! So like they're a fun team to root for and a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
Maybe just temper your expectations on like the actual chance they lift the trophy, because you need some sort of macro, and to be honest, you probably got to be playing a ring console character to do it. So.
Yeah.
No, like if they win, catch me losing my voice, I'll be laughing. I'll be everything. I'll be so fucking
incredible.
I love the team. It's just like it's just like
I said, they're electric to watch.
Frustrating
watching them in the group stage. If you're an Unlimit fan, you're probably going nuts because they're killing everybody. And when they do like slay a lobby so hard that they get into like a final 5, you feel so great when they pull it off and win, because that means they probably have like a 20 kill win.
Yeah.
When they have like a win, it's usually a huge win because they always try to steamroll their way to it.
Yeah. And I know we went on for the long time. Last thing, badass logo. And you know what? Like, I'm a sucker for purple jerseys and everything like that. I know a lot of people have leaned to that. I think just the purple that they use, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a special kind of purple. It's definitely a special kind of purple. Actually, Jay's background has like a similar vibe to like that Unlimit logo.
I chose my university half on purple. So
hell yeah. Next team, Team Falcons.
Yeah.
The big one. Imperial, Hal, Guild, and Waltzy. You don't have to speak too much about their accomplishments. We know what it is. They obviously got second at the in champs in Japan. Their matchday performances go as follows. They had a 4th place, a 13th, a 3rd, an 8th, a 4th, a 4th. And then in the regional finals, they placed 6th. They didn't get a win, a matchday win in this split, but it is funny to look at because there were so many segments we had talking about like what's going on with Falcons, and literally it's all top 10s except for one day. So interesting there. But Team Falcons, and Jumba, I want to throw this one to you because this one is interesting. Obviously, this team is spoken for as far as how good they can be, what their ceiling is, what their floor is. I don't even think we have to really get to that. It's really just, do we think that they can overcome kind of like a weird season and finally just get to that spot? Like Jay said it at the beginning of the show. It's like Pro League is, it's okay, but like they play for these lands. And is this where we're going to see them kind of finally solidify this roster and get that win?
Yeah, I feel like we saw and we're hearing, and the only reason we ever brought up Falcons, it seemed like there was like personnel things going on like throughout the split. They've had a lot of time. They finished top 5, and I feel like you don't hear any more of that come out. So if they're like squashing, if anything even was there, because like we're taking a lot from what the outside perspective is, and they might be fine behind closed doors. If they squash whatever is there, I don't think that there's very much to say. It's like you said yourself, like I think it's Falcons. I think we know what to expect. They're a threat coming in every single time to win. And I don't think that you could ever drop them out of a favorite to win. I thought this is going to be some Hal glaze, but as I was kind of like, I'm working on some stuff for this land, like coming up and everything like that, and seeing that just like Hal led the split in kills again, right? And some part of me thinks, oh, well, that's because like the way he plays, like he's putting himself in the spot to always be the one opening up, right? Even though he like was one of the top ones, even when Zero was like IGLing. It's just like crazy how consistent this guy has been for 7 years of the game. I saw like a really interesting discussion about like when like Messi dropped the hat trick the other day about like how close he is to the number 2 guy in the game. And like for a while it was Hal and Zero. And I wonder if you look at champs, you look at the split, I guess maybe this land will tell us like if Zero makes a sick run, comes back, if it's still close. But it's like, how much is Hal separating himself from the second guy in the game at this point? So that's what I'm saying. Maybe I'm like on some real Hal glaze here. We'll see what happens. But like, yeah, I don't really know how much to add. I don't think I have to really break down their play styles and everything like that. I think it's a given.
Yeah, it really just comes down to like, is it going to be their day? Is it going to be their tournament and all of that? Now, Jay, as far as Falcons goes, like we've said, you don't really have to mention like anything about their play style. It's really just, do you feel like they're peaking at the right time? And with EWC, obviously format's a little bit different, so it changes there. But I don't think that really translates necessarily for this team. They just expect greatness. They expect to win. Will they win is the question.
I'm never going to say that like Falcons are going to be bad at LAN, because ultimately I don't really care how these guys do in Pro League. Like they always show up. Obviously, I mean, there was that 120th place, but I think there was such a collection of issues that were happening at that time, that the meta and the role fits and just everything, and Zero and Gen had, been going head to head for a while, and there was talks about like how they just didn't mesh well anymore. I'm never going to say all that stuff, but at the same time, I just did a quick little scan. I think this is the first time in Hal's entire career that he's ever had a Pro League where he didn't have a first or a second ever.
I was thinking that too, and I did see that. I will say that. Like, I don't like a first for sure. I don't know if Hal's ever gone to split without winning.
He's had one split where he did not have a first based on my quick scan, but that split was, I think, all the way back in like 2022. Yeah. It was 2022 split 2 Pro League, where they got 7th in Pro League, TSM did, but they got second the first 2 match days. So they got back-to-back seconds. They just didn't have a win. And the leaderboard was pretty tight, but that was also back when like ESA was at their peak, and anyway. So that's the only ever time.
That's when they were dropping
Hal's
Fragment too. Like they were staying.
Yeah, that was
like
like pre-Raven
like,
era, where that CSM had the worst macro potentially of all time. They're dropping Fragment, East, and Antenna, and those POIs were hot butt cheeks back then. It's crazy, like how bad they were at macro, and how Raven came in and was like, guys, fixed a couple things, they just instantly go first the next year. Anyway, so in terms of their ceiling, I almost do like question, like, can they win this one? They're always a threat. I'm never going to say they can't, but this is maybe the split in terms of maybe the entire time that they've been Falcons as a roster that I've got some thoughts. Like I really do wonder, can they actually get it done? Because although we look at the results and we're like, Falcons looked good this split. Dude, so many times it felt like Hal's blowing up on match days. Him and Waltzy specifically seem to like be having some arguments. Draugr has had some moments where he's having to like blow a gasket to get people to lock in. And I think it's just because they don't have, like, at least so far, they haven't had that ability to just like have a consistent 6 games. They'll have a couple pop-off games, but they haven't had that one series where they just put their stamp on it and said, like, we're the best team here. And so, like I said, when they get to LAN, I expect them to do well. I think that their ceiling is still winning the whole damn thing. But I think that this is maybe the weakest that they have looked going into a LAN just based on Pro League before. And that's crazy to say because that just shows how high the standard is.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they haven't won a single match day, that does really concern me.
I think it's also interesting about like just like how much you cannot take scrims into account. We've talked about this a million times before, but guys, like before Pro League started, they were winning every scrim by like 50 fucking points. It was bizarre. And then like they came out this, and that's why like the thing I brought up the most was like the personnel issues, because like they're all 3 of like some of the best players in the game, but like sometimes you can't get past that shit if it is there.
Yeah. Now, Dawn, going over to you a little bit, it did kind of like jog my memory as Jay was kind of going through and talking about just this split in general and like them not getting, a day where they go first. It also felt like there was a lot of games in a lot of these match days where they would just have these uncharacteristic like 18th, 17th, like games that are dying so early. And that's happened for a long time where it's like you have a random game. It felt like in this Pro League, though, it was happening multiple times over and over on different match days, and they were able to battle back and be able to get their, decent placements. But it did feel like it was happening more often than not. And you watch Falcons a lot, Don. I like, obviously you have like an affinity for this team. You want to see greatness be achieved by this squad. What do you see from your perspective?
I think that was about the nicest way you can say I'm a Falcons glazer, but anyway. No,
the comments are coming for you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't mind being a fan of someone that's good. I mean, it is what it is. But no, it's definitely been interesting to watch, man, because they talked about it, and I think it was even Draugr that had mentioned it a little bit this year, that their problem that they felt like they had last year was that they just couldn't close out games when they needed to. Like we obviously saw a couple times where they had moments where one person didn't seem to be on the right page. They ended up losing the 3v3. You expect them to win, but they felt like their early and mid game were always so good, and they are basically always in a position to win. Whereas now it almost just felt like the opposite, at least with the early game part, because they just have some of these early games where, again, like you said, you see them die off early, you see them not play a certain rotate, or they get inted by somebody, or like something happens in that early game. I think towards the end of the split, they've gotten a little bit better with that, because just kind of looking through the numbers and stuff, things definitely were on a better page with that. But one thing I did actually find really interesting, which again, it's insane to see, they won one game. Not even talking about winning a match day. They won one game this split. Like, when is the last time? I remember when
they won that game, the call
they made
that
a
Rain Day
huge
had,
deal about it too.
Yeah, he was like, it's been like months since they had won, which obviously like that included the time since champs, but it was to show like they've played a couple match days here and they hadn't been able to get a win, which is crazy because this team is supposed to be the team. They should be winning a game every day they play.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. I mean, you're just even looking at it. They had 8 top threes. They only won one of them. They had 13 top fives. Again, only one win out of all that.
That's
So
crazy.
it's just like, again, you would think those numbers will equal out, right? And they would eventually come around to where they kind of win some more of these moments. But I think we've talked about it, which is what makes this team, when it's going really well, it's amazing, right? But Hal's style of IGLing is very much trusting his teammates to be able to essentially work for themselves, right? He doesn't really like to overly uh, micro them in terms of ult usages and things like that. Obviously, he'll jump in when he needs to, but I mean, we saw in that final end game in Game 7 where they had lost, like he wasn't talking about using your ult here or doing this here. Like he very much is like locked into what he's doing, and his expectation is that his teammates could also follow line. Well, when it's on the bad side of things and things aren't going so well, that's where we see a lot of these things occur of like, oh, why didn't you do this here? Why didn't you do that there? Whereas if he's maybe microing stuff a little bit more, those things don't necessarily happen. But then you're also distracting him from what he's really good at, which is obviously entering fights and putting up that damage that he does. So like it's kind of like which side do you take? Obviously, Hal's always going to take opening up fights because he's so good at it. But you almost just wonder, like, when they get to LAN, is he a little bit more microing these guys now, seeing that things haven't worked as well this split? Is he more worried about those kind of things? Like, again, Hal's the most, winningest player we've ever seen, right? So, like, I'm not going to sit here in my position and question what he's going to do at LAN, right? But you just kind of wonder with how this particular split has gone, do some of those things creep in just during this specific tournament? Again, my head says they're still going to be Falcons that we know. They're still going to be in the conversation to win. But that's just a question I kind of just have is like with how some of these end games haven't gone their way, where they get off to these really rough starts. Because that's the other thing I've seen too, is a lot of the time their games 1 through 3 are terrible. Like
that's what I was mentioning.
3 to 5
it's like
points. It's so slow, but then they just go crazy games 4 through 6. And I just, again, don't think that's sustainable either, especially when you raise the level at a LAN. So it's a lot more just these kind of underlying questions that are only going to be answered once we see them play at LAN. Again, everything in the past has shown that they're going to answer those questions. It'll be just fine. But it's just, again, you see the one win and only one, they've only won one game this split. You've seen that they're not necessarily converting top 10s to wins, that they're having these issues early games. So it's just a lot of more just kind of these smaller questions. And if they continue to add up, that's where we kind of see like, oh, they only got 10th, or oh, they only got, 6th and weren't really in the conversation. So it's going to be probably the most interesting version of Hal and his team entering a LAN that we've probably ever seen, because we just have, I think, more questions than answers right now.
One thing I'm kind of thinking about as you guys continue to talk and break down from what you've seen and such, how much do we like? So I think Jay and I talked about this earlier at some point, but it's like when the meta in Pro League was like very interesting. Like we talked about again, like Unlimit not taking ring console. There's a lot of teams that didn't run ring console comps throughout Pro League because you can get away with that, like to an extent. Whereas like, especially once you get to a LAN finals lobby, which I'd say that they're going to make it there, like things change and you'll see like most teams running ring console characters, but then leads to ring console characters as being the ones that get banned. Right. And so like you cycle through those and everything, right? Which is like kind of what we saw at Japan. So it's like two of the things that I was going to bring up is one, do we think that, the meta that might show up in a finals, do we think it will be different? Do we think that we'll see kind of like what we were seeing in Pro League with the comps? Or do we see some more of that like controller character, recon character for rotating that we typically see like kind of come out like from metas? And then the second thing I was thinking is was Falcons kind of like just the best crypto team? Because one thing I was thinking about with finals is like they got to play crypto all the way up until match 8, where like he wasn't even banned in match 9, where it's like crypto's like literally game 1 ban now, right? And so were they able to leverage just that insane amount of knowledge they were able to get with crypto, and that's what like really helped them get into like certain positions to like win games and everything like that, or put up a lot of points. And without crypto, are they maybe like affected by it now? Like Seer, as good as he can be is not what Crypto does.
Yeah. One thing I did want to bring up too that I think is going to be an interesting wrinkle that they are working on right now is that with the introduction of Axel, Alter has been falling to Guild now. So they've been running both Axel and Alter, which I think is a very interesting change because we obviously know Guild is really good at fragging and refragging still on like these controller legend characters. So like while, you know, Waltzy's running Crypto Newcastle, they'll still use Guild for like ring console on like a Caustic or on a Cat or on a Watson. But if they are able to keep Alter in, because we've seen now like Alter obviously started like as an early ban, but a lot of these APAC teams have not really liked to run her much. If you've looked really throughout a lot of the bans that have happened so far in Pro League. So if that holds to LAN, I'm very curious what this team looks like when they have Guild and more of like a playmaking type character on Alter, because I truly think that could potentially be a game changer for them, to kind of maybe mix things up of like, oh, like he's kind of stuck in this character where he can't make as many plays. Whereas now you get him on a character like this, you get Hal and Axel, like this is a very good fighting team, obviously. And you get these two guys being able to come at you with these kind of characters and be able to get, you know, back in and out of fights. And then you have obviously Walty to follow up, whether it's Seer or Crypto. It's going to be a team that, or that combination might be what they need to maybe kind of snap out of like the rut they maybe feel like they were in. That's kind of probably what I'll be keeping my eye on, is how much they want to try to run this actual Alter combination, because they still will get the ring console information once Alter gets to blue. So that'll be one I think for people to keep an eye on, is if that comp holds and it plays well, that might be the difference for them to kind of replace like that Crypto that maybe they can't run as much, because it still then allows Walty to play Seer, and then you get the two guys on playmaking roles. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. So Falcons. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Sorry, I just wanted to go back to what Jumba asked, because I feel like he asked a couple questions there on the comp thing. I actually, because I sent that voicemail in where I was like, I think when we get to LAN, we're just going to get back to seeing ring console characters. The one thing that I do think was very underrated that allowed the ring console character rotation to happen in that champs run is there was none of the other characters like a Mirage or a Fuse that were good enough for an edge team to want to play them and use them to get ring console once you get the blue perk. With the Pathfinder changes, I wonder, we'll have to see what happens in scrims, but if Pathfinder starts getting played a lot more by edge teams, that completely disrupts the flow of ring console characters, because now all it takes is like 4 to 5 edge teams that are like an Unlimit to just say, which they weren't really counting into that anyway, actually. So like, let's say like an Alliance who would run a ring console character, but is instead going to be like, let's run Pathfinder instead. And now we go back to some of the previous events like Mannheim or that EWC.
The Open is a good one. The Open,
the Open, yeah, the Open's a perfect one, where the Fuses and the Mirages were everywhere, and instead you weren't seeing all of these ring console characters get banned. It was instead like, you know, the Alters and the Newcastles and everybody else and the Cryptos and all that stuff. And so if Pathfinder is getting played really heavily by, not even heavily, just enough, I think that can disrupt some of those teams. So we'll see.
I just find that they don't play those characters now because of the Evo changes more than anything. Like it's just like not getting
changes
blue.
Are big.
Yeah, like just not getting blue off rip. And if the Evo's far, like I think like Alliance, once they got burned with that Fuse in that final, like just do not want to like risk that again.
I agree. And so that's why I'm like, it just depends on what happens in scrims. If you can convince enough teams to do it, then all of a sudden I don't think we're going to get into a finals. We're going to see the rotation of ring console characters. But like you said, if the teams have learned from that finals where they're like, can't need it, and there's too many squads that are like wisened up to it, then we truly might, because the ring console is the most powerful thing I think you can possibly have in a match point lobby. And so it depends on what happens there. Another thing I did want to bring up, because you asked about the thing about, is like crypto. Yeah. Are they like a crypto crutch? It could be, but one thing that I like, while y'all were talking, I was just kind of looking at some stats and just trying to see, is there anything that like really stands out here? And I know that Don had actually noted this in his teaser for the guides, but they sucked on Stormpoint, like really sucked on Stormpoint. And so I was like, let me go look at some of the stats here. In terms of the total earned points on each map, on Olympus, they had 140. On E-District, they had 100. And on Stormpoint, they only had 86 total points, which accounted for about 26% of their point total across the entire split only came on Stormpoint, which is not great. Here's the crazier part about that. Remember, 86 total points on Stormpoint. 59 of that came from kills. Their placement is through the floor on that map. They have one top 5 on Stormpoint, I think the entire split,
That
if I'm
is
not mistaken.
so wild.
Yeah.
Or sorry, no. Wait, maybe I'm wrong. Top 5 rate per map, it says 12 now. I thought. Anyway, point being, they're just not good at getting placement on Stormpoint, because even if they get 12 top 5s, the fact that that doesn't even make sense with the stats, because 86 versus 59 would be 27 total points. And so they just don't get placement. Point being, they just don't get placement on Stormpoint ever. And so what are you supposed to do if that's the case? And now I even wonder, because historically the map or the POIs that they've been picking from that map were things like Cenote. Like, I know that ever since Hal's taken over IGL, they love Cenote on that map. But then even Don wrote down, like, they took North Pad a couple times. What are you going to do if there's no Trident now? It makes the rotations even slower, so it's even harder to get in to that map. They played Lightning Rod in regional finals, which I know is like a very good POI on that map, but once again, no Trident. So I wonder, do we start to see them maybe adjust in scrims? Because Stormpoint has been a map that they are prioing POIs on, that they're typically getting pretty good POIs throughout. Like I said, Cenote, that was the map they were picking like top 5 in drafts. And so I wonder if they try to adjust the strategy a little bit there going into some of these scrims, because it's been a pretty clear weakness for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did want to say too, real quick, to your point about if you felt like Crypto was like a big character for them. I think definitely like last year for sure, because again, I think the big thing that did with him not getting banned is it really gave like some consistency for Walty to play, really allowed him to like fully embrace that co-IGL like aspect that he's able to provide. And obviously Crypto is a perfect character for that. But I think when we brought up earlier that like, I wish I could see these percentages. Their games 1 through 3 felt like it was always terrible. With Crypto's, he's going to ban game 1. So their performances game 4 through 6, at least it felt like to me, were always really, really good. So that's why I don't think really it might be the Crypto thing. Again, I would have to see the numbers to really like get into that deep. But yeah, I just think again, it really just does come down to, for these guys, is just what is that communication like between the three of them at the end of the day? Like, are they on the same page? You know, are they able to fight stuff together? Because there's definitely moments where Hal's saying, hey, let's do this. And he's like maybe 1 or 2 seconds ahead on his Axel queue. And especially when you're Axel and you're sliding in, you are fully expecting your teammates to be right behind you. And if someone's trying to rip a bat or someone's trying to do this, like that's that 1 or 2 seconds where like you're basically on your own. And especially at these lobbies, you're going to get picked or you're going to have no help. You're not going to put the damage you want to put in. So like, I just think it's just really those kind of like smaller moments of comms that as long as they're on the same page with those, I think we'll see the normal Falcons. But if there was one thing I really could knock them was that I do think in those moments of just even saying like, I'm not with you or I'm batting or I'm swinging right, like those little things, it just seemed like they weren't doing as great this particular split. So if they get back to that and they clean all that kind of stuff up, I think we'll see the normal Falcons. But again, a lot of those points I think we've talked about have been, again, just brought, I think, a lot more questions about this roster than I think we normally have going into a LAN. So
100%.
Just as a quick correction, because I did say the thing about they got one total top 5 on Stormpoint, and then I was confused and thought it said 12. The website was not updating, and so it was showing 12 because that was a different stat line. It is correct. They had 1 top 5 on the entire split on Stormpoint. So, like, that is really bad when that is a map that you are prioritizing Lightning Rod in regional finals, and one of the other matches they had Cenote. That is like a top 5 draft pick is being used on this map, and you are not getting good placements ever on this map.
And that's probably what, at least 12, 13, 14 games, probably even more than that, probably. Like, how many games they played on that map? So that's crazy.
The good thing for finals is they got 4 maps, so they don't only have to play that map every 4 fucking games.
True.
Hopefully it's like
what if Stormpoint ends up being that map that all the teams are like it's at the turn?
Like if it's the 4th one, you have to play it back to back. It might be one of the only maps you play twice.
You don't want that to be the map that like you all of a sudden that's where you're supposed to close it out, and you historically are not getting top 5s ever on it. So that's something that they absolutely need to work on, because the other maps they had 5 top 5. 5s at E-District and 7 on Olympus. Like, they were pretty balanced. The KP was good on all those. It's just for some reason, Storm Point, the KP is like 70% of their total points on Storm Point. They couldn't get placement at all.
It's so funny because as I was clicking around here, like, and one-offs always happen. No one's saying they can't win a Storm Point game.
Yes.
And they can't win without crypto. But game 1 of Japan Champs, they didn't play crypto, and it was a Storm Point game, and they won it. Now, it was just from, like, an insane zone call, but it was a Barrow zone, so I feel like they've played the fucking million of those. Like, but, like, yeah, it was a great zone call. They had the spot. They sat on the bridge. No one could touch their position, and they just cleaned up the lobby. But it's just kind of funny that's like the game they won back there.
That's why I was like, listen, this I'm never going to sit here and say that they can't win a lane, because when they get on that stage, these guys are just different. They just are. But at the same time, and I think this is the perfect way to like round out Falcons, if they did bad this LAN, and I know bad for Falcons is like a very different standard than anybody else. It's like, like
honestly,
if they did,
I say last year midseason playoffs was not Falcons' brightest. Sixth place. In position to win the LAN.
Like, you should have won. What happened? It felt like they faded away towards the end of the lobby, and it was such a long one. Like in the previous CWC, and they for some reason started off so hot and then just never really were able to get going in the second half of that lobby either. If that same thing was able to happen here, I think we could then look back on this and be like, the red flags were there.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'm fully ready for the comments when they see the chapters of Falcons. I'm fully ready for them to just be like, Falcons, Glazers, pieces of shit, calling us assholes. But we're going to have to just stomach it. We're just going to have to stomach it. That is what it is. This group of boys right here, this 4 group of boys, we are in Discord almost every day, and we can yap. We are an hour in, and we have so many teams left. We have
to be fair, though,
so many teams left.
These are like the good teams in the group.
Yeah, these are the good
teams.
These are good teams.
Like, it's going to be quick.
Yeah, so let's get into Shopify Rebellion, ladies and gentlemen. And Dawn, I want to go to you first, and here's why. When I was going through and making my Shopify Rebellion is going to win LAN prediction, you had been telling me they are not looking good going into this specific LAN. I think we've got the opposite going on here. There's been a lot of question marks about this team, a lot from me. I've been calling them Flopify Rebellion. I've been calling them Slopify Rebellion. Their match day performance is 12th, 16th, but then they turned a corner, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 1st. And the regional finals, they get themselves into that 5th place position. Dawn, do you think that they're actually hitting a stride going into a LAN rather than floundering on their way in?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the numbers back it up, and just the placements and things say that they are in a really good form. And I think it's probably the first time, at least, that we've seen between champs and then mixed in the now Pro League, that I felt like we finally are starting to see like the version we all expected Shopify to be. Again, we know it's Pro League, so we got to take it with a grain of salt as much as we can. But I do think, barring any sort of kind of mental gateway or some sort of mental lapse that they have to where they kind of either turn on each other or they lose their confidence, I do think we're going to see a much better version of this team at this particular LAN, because I think they just finally realized and remembered who they were eventually throughout this split. They really started to try to play like super hard zone. On top of that, they had, the issues we've talked about multiple times with like the internet and things like that, where they just weren't playing at their full capacity. But I think once they really just got their confidence as a team, we now have seen Zainu IGLing for a good amount of time now. I think he's making his adjustment. And then again, you've got Zapdo and Koiful, who are 2 of the best players in their role in the entire world. There's just a lot to like with this roster. I mean, just even running through stuff, they had the best average placement of any team in the region, basically averaging an 8th place, which is insane. Averaging well into the top 10. Yep, they're 3rd best and even reaching top 10. They're converting 20% of their top 5s to wins, which is a pretty insane rate. And there's just a lot of good numbers in their favor that I think, as long as they can just avoid, again, that mental kind of like confidence, lacking at times, I think these guys are going to be absolutely locked in to be, again, a team that's competing for match point. And again, we've said that a couple times and it hasn't panned out. I do truly hope this is the time that we see the best that they are, because again, there's not many teams in the world that are as good in a 3v3 straight up fight as these guys. You know, we throw Falcons in there, you can probably throw Alliance in there, you can throw Aurora in there, but NIP, but there's really not that many other teams that are that good or are that scary at fighting as these guys are. So
yeah,
I think especially, you know, with the comps that teams are playing, where even when they're running like these controller legends, they still are able to kind of mix in like this kill comp kind of favor with like a Watson or a Cat or a Caustic or something like that. I just think that it's opened up a lot of different pathways for them to succeed. You know, they're succeeding with the kills, they're succeeding with their placement. So I do feel really good about them. It's nice to see them really bounce back. And I think it's, again, a ton of credit to not just the guys, but also Don and Liuk. I think both of them have done an insane job with how well they've coached this split. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what version we get out of them. And especially with it being, I think there's a team that actually is really benefiting from this being a group stage. I do think it's these guys, because I think they can play a little bit more loose. They can really play for, you know, getting that extra KP to help them boost their points, to really work their way into that top 14 and make finals, because I believe the last time EWC they did not even make finals, which obviously was a little bit of a different format. So I think the group stages will definitely benefit these guys, and I'm expecting some really good things out of this roster.
Did either of you guys have anything to add on to Shopify Rebellion? I know it's been an up and down season. It is funny though that they ended up just being fifth, like with all the bullshit we were talking, or I was talking. You guys have anything else to add on to Shopify?
I want to jump in here because obviously the Pro League stuff, like it happened, blah, blah. I don't really care about that anymore. What I care about is the fact that the last two lands that Shopify has played at, they got 23rd and 18th. Okay. So the narrative right now to me is Shopify going to bounce back? They won regional finals in last split before, you know, champs, and then they came in and got fifth here. So clearly they can be good in Pro League. It's a matter of, can you show up in a LAN finals lobby? Zainu has taken a little bit of time when it comes to some of like ironing out specific things in IGLing. And the thing that I feel like I've noticed the most that I think was giving him problems, that I think he has started to fix in the second half of this Pro League split, which it remains to be seen if he can do it on LAN, but he was doing it in Pro League, is that there's a lot of times where I think he identifies the correct play, he identifies the correct God spot, he mistimes it. Whether it's they're leaving too late or they're leaving too early and they get caught out on rotate and they die in a spot that they shouldn't. This happened on the first day of Pro League where they did terrible, right? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, Shopify, we should drop them. And the reason that I still had hope is because, do you remember that one game on Olympus where NIP was like at the little compound outside of Estates right below the ramp? And then there was GK Gaming. They were DKK back then. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember who the other team was.
I think it was Team Vision.
Yeah, and that was the game where like Zero goes crazy and just like 1v3s a team, like that specific game. I remember that game, right? That game, the spot where NIP ends up playing underneath that ramp, Zainu had called that spot like the moment the ring popped. So he clearly knew where to go. The issue was when they rotated through Turbine, they got caught out by JD Gaming and they died to them. And it truly was as simple as like they're just in their Trident. JD just destroys it and kills them like on the spot. And so that's one of those moments where I think he's just having these issues of properly like timing the rotations and figuring out like how the lobby is going to adjust to things. And then the thing that I felt like I noticed at champs was, as the LAN progresses, as you get closer to the finals lobby, the timings get ironed out a lot more. Like teams are moving quicker. And I think he was not adjusting to those quicker rotations that other teams were now making. Like once you were playing in the winners bracket, they squeaked through and they got 10th. But in the groups, they were looking really good. And then obviously when you get to the finals, that was their worst performance. So like you can see each step of the way, they were getting worse and worse and worse because I don't think they were adjusting the way they were playing while the rest of the lobby was. So I think that when I saw he was, obviously they just started killing everybody. Like we talked about that. Like they just went back to their bread and butter. But it also has felt like Zainu was calling games a little bit better in terms of the pacing that the team is moving at. And I think that's important. So as long as they can keep doing that, they're super scary, because the one thing I will say is when Shopify do get center zone, they are really terrifying to watch play, because when they get like a safe base of operations and then all of a sudden Koifel starts extending and he's just killing people there, and Zainu starts extending over here and Zap's getting picks from deep, like they can just decimate people if they can get to that center zone spot. And I think the timing is the really important part for them.
Jumbo?
I mean, like, yeah, I was gonna just say something similar about the fact that it's like we've seen 2 pro leagues now where, other than the first half where there was like some question marks and everything like that, they've finished off really strong, really good. But then 2 lands where it's like just was not great. Like I remember every time I'd see Zainu at champs, we would have like a brief passing conversation of him just laughing. And this was actually a good thing. I couldn't believe how they were just squeaking through qualifications. And he was like, I thought he'd be like stressed. Instead, he was like, so like up in spirits about it, which I was like, okay, that's good. Cause like, you know, like if you're broken down, like it's hard to come back from that, but he was up in spirits about it. He was like, could you believe we fucking pulled that out? But like, yeah, so like that was happening. And like, you know, a lot of the timing discussion like Jay brings up is really interesting because like I think it just absolutely has to come down to like more of a macro or a planning thing, because you don't look at those players and question their ability to win fights or to like you know, like be able to like go against anyone in the world. So it has to be something that they're doing in the early game that is not allowing them to execute on the end of the game or you know, bring up more points when they should be getting it. So my thing with them is like they're a little bit of a question mark for me until I see how they start performing at LAN.
Which is fair.
Yeah, we know they're like some of the best in the world, but like last year, if you asked me at EWC, would they have not made finals? Or if you told me like, hey, they're getting 23rd, I would told you you're fucking crazy. Like they had just come off champs where they were like ridiculously insane. So like I would have told you you're crazy. If you told me they got 18th like the following tournament after that, I've been like, shut up, you don't know anything. So
yeah, I will say too, I think one thing also to Jay pointed out Zainu's adjustments and stuff. I think again, one, obviously he's developed a lot more confidence as an IGL, being in a lot more situations that he's had to make these plays, make these calls, like Jay said, getting used to those timings of like, I have to go this nanosecond or we're dead or we miss out on the game winning spot. But I also think one thing I really love too is his adjustments in like a post game sort of setting in terms of the tone and the way they're going about either someone making a mistake or reinforcing good habits. Because I think one criticism we do have at times, again, is, you know, potentially Koiful overextending or not having a good comm or Zapto not having the confidence sometimes to make plays. I think Zainu's done a really good job of trying to reinforce either good habits or reinforce the confidence in his teammates. And I think that's just going to be extremely important for these guys that, again, they have that mental barrier that they have to break through, like you guys mentioned. They've had 2 poor performances from LAN when they were expected to be top 5. And I think that mental part is going to be the biggest test they have, because we're talking about LAN champions here, and then Zapto, who is one of the best in his role in the game. So ultimately, it really, for me, is going to come down to just, can they mentally work through things when it's not going well and, you know, figure out ways, you know, hey, we're not in a great spot, let's just get 5 points here. Hey, we're not going to be able to do this game, but this next game we can definitely pop off. As long as they can not compound, you know, one bad game into 2 or 3 that we saw last year, again, I do think we're going to see a much better version of this team. The question marks are fair, but again, I think for me, I definitely expect them to be a contender at this LAN for sure.
Yeah. Before we move on, last thing I wanted to say, I truthfully believe that this is going to be the last time we see this iteration of Shopify Rebellion. I think we're going to get another bad LAN. And I don't think it's any particular player's fault. I just don't think they mix. I don't think they match. They obviously have in the past. I think they're beyond that point. I've thought this for a while now. I don't think they're going to be moving on. I like after this, I think it's done. And we're going to start to see them move into different teams, different roles. I have
scarred.
Yeah,
I just think
like from like back, you picked
it could be that
so many
and
times
they did bad. You know,
it could be that.
It's like the polar opposite.
I'm completely flipped.
I know what he's
I'm
trying to do.
completely flipped. It's dead. It's done.
If they fucking
it's completely dead.
The universe knows.
It's over.
If
it's
they,
done for Shopify.
Oh my god! If they win, like, wait, I won't even put it out there. I won't say it. I will say, like, I was thinking, but I feel like this is just like obvious. If they do bad, like if they finish like a bottom fifth, like if they make finals but then finish in between 15th to 20th, or like they don't make finals, like yeah, we're gonna see a roster change. Like
It's done.
That's
Yeah.
that's not
If it happens
rocket
3 lands in a row,
science. Yeah, that's not rocket science.
at this point, it's like, listen, we get the roster's good on paper, but somebody's gonna be like, I'm leaving.
And like,
Yeah,
like
you have
yeah,
to.
like you could have 3 insane players and they don't work sometimes. We literally like could talk about CRT, like 3 like highly decorated players that just clearly don't mesh. It's kind of crazy, like, because I felt like this team, like they won Pro League, they got 5th, they looked so good, like in that scenario, but on land something happens.
Baggage.
I'll go out on a limb
sometimes it
here and
starts,
say this will be the best of the 3 lands. I know, crazy high
Crazy.
bar to say.
Wow, they have to play.
I think they're going to finish better than 18. All right.
That's big.
And it technically
That's my
they were
prediction.
That's
empty the
big.
previous land actually, so it's it's just one to 18th they gotta
Yeah.
beat.
17th would be incredible. Okay, boys, let's move off of Shopify Rebellion and let's get into Team Dory here. Team Dory
go
from
first here?
APAC
Yeah.
North. Jay, go right ahead. The 6th
All
seed
right.
from APAC North.
Notre Dame, the
I
Arc
knew it
de
was coming.
Triomphe,
I knew it was coming.
the Palace
I wasn't
of
gonna do it this
Versailles.
week. I wasn't gonna do it this week.
There's
I
a lot
was-
of great stuff to see in Paris, and I think that they're going to have a hell of a time.
They're going to
out the
love
sites.
Paris.
If anyone didn't see, on Reddit, it has come
Yeah.
out that their IGL cannot
So,
make it to the
mhm.
tournament because of a collapsed lung.
Oh,
Is that what
Yeah,
it was? I
um,
knew he wasn't.
they're not
which
supposed to do
honestly is so tragic. Like I say the joking thing about that stuff, it really does suck. The sub listed on the roster is their coach, Muscle, who used to coach Fnatic. For anyone wondering, Muscle did used to play professionally, but Muscle's career placements are really not that good. Okay. So, finishing like 20th in Pro League type of stuff. And I think that's why Muscle transitioned over to coaching. And so I just think when your IGL is out, I truly think they're going to be a bottom 6 team based on that. And if they don't, bravo. Like
That's a
truly,
sick story.
Yeah.
because I think it's just so tough to overcome your IGL being out. Once again, your coach subbing in is also probably mechanically not the greatest. There's not a lot of coaches out there that are probably grinding the game the same level that these players are. And so it's a pretty tragic situation. I know that there's also been some talk about like the fact that they weren't allowed an emergency sub to pick up a separate player. My understanding of the rule, which I believe was backed up on the Reddit post, was that if you have a registered player as a substitute, like Muscle is, which a lot of teams do use that as sort of the loophole to like keep a roster together, is your coach is listed as a player, they're your sub. So the ALGS is going to enforce that. And the only reason you'd get an emergency sub, to my understanding, is if a true like even that, like you maybe don't have a sub listed on the roster, or your actual sub cannot make it and you truly have an emergency. Obviously the collapsed lung thing, probably people will be like, that classifies an emergency, but then ALGS says you have a sub. So why wouldn't that person be the one that pops in and is on the roster? So, and the roster lock is already passed, so you can't just like add somebody.
Imagine this
So-
was TSM when they used to put Tempo as their fucking sub.
He's
Before we
really,
started,
yeah.
I literally
Yeah,
mentioned that as an
yeah.
example to Don. It's like,
Yeah.
if they ever had a moment where they needed a sub, I'm sure ALGS been like, Tempo is your sub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get an emergency sub. And this is, this was enforced in the past. I remember it was were they Aurora at the time where they had to play as a duo
They had
because
to
they
play
do
as a
JHawk
duo.
and they try to change
Yeah.
it and all that stuff, right? So anyway, I feel terrible for this roster. Who was it, Don? You said Show?
Show, yeah.
I feel terrible for Show that's not going to be able to play. And it's just really unfortunate because this close to a LAN having like a medical emergency like that, you just hate to see it.
Well, and especially too, I'll just follow up just real quick. Like, there's really not any experience for these guys to really bank on either. Like, they had 2 members of this team that, again, I always hate putting these on the guides, but their only placement was 109th that they opened. So again, there's not really anything to kind of bank the experience off of. Katsu King too, it's his first LAN that he's going to. So unfortunately, when you're losing your IGL, you have, the lack of LAN experience there. Even going through the placements in Pro League, 3rd, 4th, 14th, 7th, 8th, 3rd, 4th. Nothing really, some decent performances, but again, it's APAC North. Not really the strongest region because of a lot of roster mania and stuff that happened this year. So, and even just looking through in some of the numbers, they're 5th as a team in kills. Show was one of the big reasons he had 70 of those. So it just, a lot of it is stacked up against them. You add on the situation of losing your IGL due to a medical issue. I think they'll unfortunately be getting to know the Eiffel Tower pretty quickly. So,
which isn't a bad.
It's not the worst thing in the world,
It could be way worse. It could be way worse. And honestly, if you wanted a reason to pay attention to Dory at all, it's like, dude, if muscle starts to pop off a little bit, that's a good story, man. That's a good story to follow. It's a good story to watch.
SBI Esports at Chance brought in their coach as their third. And you saw what they randomly decided to do, loses round 2. So, or loses round 1. So you never know. Yeah.
No, hey, if anything, you've got some extra info. If somebody's like, what should I know about Team Dory? It's like, hey, their IGL's not there. They're using a coach right now. Interesting, fun factoid for you back at home. Boys, let's move on to the next one here. This is Kirisame Havoc, the 7th seed from APAC South. And Dawn, I will throw it down to you for this one here. Give us a little bit of info on Havoc.
How do I put this nicely? They really are going to bank on placement because they were not much of a team that is wanting to fight early. They had a good average placement. They're averaging about 9th place. They, again, were playing decently well for the lack of experience that they do have. Going through the roster, they have 2 members that have been to 1 LAN, and then their third is the first time going to a LAN. So for them qualifying, it was definitely a pretty big surprise. But it is no secret what style they play. They're going to want to play middle fast rotating POIs. They're most of the time playing like a Grove Towers, Forbidden Zone, Ceto Station. For regional finals, they played Forbidden Zone, Grove Towers, and Galleria. So we know what kind of team they're going to be. They're going to be one that wants to rotate quick, wants to get to center zone. I just think they're going to kind of fall in that same category of like Ty from the last episode, where they're really good at rotating, but can they actually hold their spot against some of these better fighting teams? My personal feeling is that they're not really going to be able to do that. But I definitely do want to give them their credit because I think that style that they play is very difficult to play in APAC South, because APAC South, we know, is a very aggressive region normally. So the fact they even qualified for this LAN, I do think is very impressive. Got a couple members there from Malaysia, so we shout out to another, country that's getting some more representation and everything. But like I said, I don't really see them really make it a huge impact on this LAN, because I just don't think they're going to have the fighting power. The last stat I'll say is that they were 3rd in terms of getting to top 10 at 66%, but then they only had a 45% of getting top 10 to top 5. That again just shows me when you're not like an edge fighting team, you're playing zone. That means you have a difficulty of holding spots against teams that come in with better shields, better 3v3, things like that. So that's just the feeling I'm going to have with these guys. Again, awesome that they qualified, but I also do think they might be getting to know Dory and some of our other teams we've talked about, visiting some nice attractions potentially. So we'll have to wait and see.
The thing that sucks for these teams is like I say sucks, but like, they want to play Apex. They want to be there. This is good. That sounds fucked up. They want to play Apex. They want to be there, but like they have to play 3 days this time, whereas like previous EWCs was like 1 and done. So if you were like 1 and done, you got like 4 days in Paris versus only 2.
Yeah.
That's why I said this is fucked, because they probably want to play.
Yeah, not as much time to enjoy.
I will say, I actually, on the flip side, have always felt so bad for teams like in EWC, where it's like you show up and you're 1 and done, and it's just like, I actually just traveled like anywhere between 8 to fucking 15 hours and got to play 10 games of Apex.
Yeah, not fun. Not the most ideal situation. Did you guys have anything else to add on to Havoc before we move on into the next team here?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
No, no, we don't.
Do you want me to start naming more landmarks?
Just give me one. Can I get one?
The
we
beach
got
in Normandy. Actually, I don't know how
sure.
close that is to prepare.
Is that
probably? It's not close, but sure.
Normandy.
Take a little trip.
Yeah, little nice
The
little trip there.
catacombs. I don't know.
The catacombs. Yeah, I saw a scary movie about that one time. Maybe stay away from those ones. Moving on into the next one here, we have got Team Heretics. I'll throw this one back to Dawn as well. This is the EMEA 8th seed. Of their match day performances, they got a 4th, 2nd, followed by an 11th, 6th, 13th, 3rd. And then in their regional final, they got that 11th place. So Dawn, for people who don't know about Team Heretics, what the hell is going on?
I truly think if there was a team that you opened up a dictionary and you were trying to figure out what the definition of wild card is, I think it's going to be these guys. I truly don't know what we are going to see from these guys at LAN. A lot of it is because of the inexperience. They only have one guy that's even played at a LAN before, which was Yans. He played at the Open, where he actually performed decently well, like got into the top 40. But I just truly don't know what we're really going to see from these guys at all. It feels like, just kind of going through things, they probably want to play a little bit more edge and take some more fights. But again, I truly don't know, because they started off really hot. I mean, they were one of the stories of EMEA when they were pre-Aniki, before they signed to Team Heretics. And then they just were super inconsistent then from there on out, going 11th, 6th, 13th, 3rd, 11th. I mean, that just screams to me that, again, they lack kind of that experience of, really grinding out these match days, trying to find that consistency. And again, I just think the way that they play, I don't think they have the best macro at times. I think that, they don't rotate the map as well as we'll see some from our other teams. Probably a lot of that due to the lack of experience. But again, we'll see what they do. Because like I said, I just really don't know. Some of the numbers they've put in, like 4th in damage, 3rd best damage differential. So it seems like there might be some potential with their fighting, but I truly think it's just going to be one of these things where, like, we're just got to see them on LAN, because it's hard to judge them based off of EMEA, because we know sometimes how EMEA can be with Pro League and just how Pro League is in general. So I just think it's truly just the definition of wildcard team throughout. I just truly don't know what we're to expect. So, but shout out to Heretics, though. Sick org. Love to have them in here. So that is one thing going for them. Love that org.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Jumpy, you had something?
I was probably going to leave this and not talk about it, but you know what? Fuck it. Let's talk about it. I swear before Pro League, I saw something where it's like one of their players was like, I cannot play with these fucking guys. I am so done. I'm totally over it. And then they came out and then they got they were first after day 2 or 2nd. And then they I think they stuck together because of that.
Yeah,
but
I'm very sure that you're correct.
There's a ton of conversation. I was just it was such a crazy message. It was they don't like each other. I don't know much about them other than that. I was similar. My thing with Dawn is from what I had seen when I watched a bit of the main broadcast, main feed, it was just you didn't know what you were gonna get, and I thought that the biggest thing coming this lane is just gonna be inexperience, right, for them, right? It's 40th at the Open. While it's interesting to kind of evaluate, because the Open was just such a weird lane in general. It's also qualifying for the Open is not qualifying for another LAN. So this is the first real LAN all three of them are going to be at. And that will just hinder them when you have such inconsistency even in Pro League. And then if you got on the fact that they might not even like each other, but they're just stuck together because of new roster rules and shit, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting situation.
Imagine if you just won LAN off of pure hatred.
They go to fucking win LAN. We get them on the pod. They're like, I don't talk to them at all. I fucking played Apex with them. Can't stand this shit.
I hate them.
I'm spreading rumors out
it's
here,
the Philadelphia Eagles. Literally, they'd just be the Eagles. Dude, they all hate each other, but they won a Super Bowl.
That's crazy.
Insane. Jay, did you have anything for Heretics?
The only thing is dude, like Don said, I remember at the start of the split, they were starting off so hot, and that's why they got signed. And it felt like when you're supposed to get the org buff, it was like an org nerf. They just started sucking right after that. And so it does kind of, I don't know what to expect from this team. Can they recapture that form? Was it just the early EMEA match days, or people are still trying to kind of figure things out? Obviously, listen, scrims don't matter that much, but if you wanted to hear what they have done in scrims so far, there's only 2 teams in Group B that have a worse scrim average so far, which we've only played 2 weeks of total scrim sets. But the 2 teams that are below them in terms of scrim average from this group are Havoc and Dory. So and we just talked about how those teams are probably bottom 6 contenders. And so I think that I don't expect them to be a bottom 6 contender. Because I do think they've at least displayed somewhat of a ceiling in EMEA that shows like they can overcome some of that in the group stages. But at the same time, like I think they might be flirting with it. Like they'll probably be pretty close. They might be one of those teams that like narrowly sneaks into that Survivor Series. So yeah, I don't really have the highest of hopes for this team, especially since like I don't remember seeing that tweet, but if that's true, like.
That's hilarious.
insane.
You might be
it was like a whole
shocked.
Reddit post, yeah, and like
I
it was like
fucking
it was
hate
like
these
leaked
guys.
Discord DMs.
Yeah,
It wasn't like I
yeah.
fucking hate these guys, but it was definitely like there's no shot I can play with these guys. I can't stand them, or something like that. So I guess that's the same as I
And
fucking
here we
hate
are.
these guys. Yeah, Right?
I do like
Yeah.
I do like Jay's idea of like the org nerf, because going from a name like Pre-Aniki and then going to Team Heretics, I do think that that's grounds for like a nerf almost. I like the name itself was pretty sick. And then you go to Team Heretics, not bad, but it's not Pre-Aniki. I think there's legs for that. I think that has legs to stand on.
True.
Just thoughts.
We'll see. We will see.
So that is Team Heretics, boys. Gen.G Esports. We've got Dexter, we've got Asia, and we've got Zicky.
Can
the
I
APAC
just say
South
something about
8
Gen.G?
seed. What happened?
Can I ask something about Gen.G?
Ask me something.
It doesn't have to be you. It could be anyone. Someone
Oh.
give me the read. APAC South timelines are so crazy, and there's too many regions and teams to cover constantly. So I didn't watch a single split. How did this team get 8th? This team.
Well,
has
that's
been
what I
around
was going to
forever.
bring up.
They've been great, and like we know it's a team that like when we talk about APAC South, we're like, oh, it's top heavy. There's good teams at the top, bad teams at the bottom, everything like that. Like they can like abuse those teams. They're the team that is supposed to be the ones that catch those teams out on edge. How are they almost not making land?
Yeah, I mean, from our regional recap, me and Don kept talking about him over and over and over again, being like, what exactly is happening? What is going on? It was a weird situation all the way through. Don, what did you see from your perspective with Gen.G?
I just think it was a combination of a couple things. One, I truly think that they've banked so long on being able to use crypto on edge and just to have that innate advantage against some of these other teams with well-timed crypto MPs, to having that extra info. And they just have gotten so used to that play style, and especially in year 5 when it worked so well for them. I just think that when the adjustment came in, that now he's gone game 1, I just don't think for the longest time they've made that adjustment to how they needed to play. Because again, we've talked about how edge has been like just pure plain edge has been very difficult to play this year. And a lot of teams have to make that adjustment to really take an advantage of the zones that play to your advantage. And again, I just don't think they've made that adjustment too, because you even, when you're inserting characters, even like Axel, where it's even allowing teams that don't normally go in third party can now then overextend with Axel, then get back with Axel. And you got Alter in play. There's so many characters now that allow teams that maybe traditionally would be sitting just kind of in their spot to at least allow one player to overextend to third party one of their fights. I just think it ultimately just did not allow them to play the play style that they wanted to play, where they were able to isolate a lot more fights on edge to where they could pick up all this KP because there's nobody else out there. I mean, we saw so many times, I think, throughout this year where we had so many more extra teams on edge because they're either trying to run Gibby comp to get all this extra Evo, or these teams that didn't have Evo friendly on their side are then picking up Evo along the way to get to zone. It just seemed like they just were never finding their isolated fights that they used to find because they always had that crypto advantage in the past. So I just think ultimately they were very, very slow to make the adjustment. And I truly don't even know if they've really made the adjustment to how you need to play things now. And I do think my head says that they're going to struggle, but honestly, I wore the jersey today to be like, Gen.G, I need to see you guys pop off. I need to see the old version of Asia going crazy, of him leading the lobby in kills. I want to see that team bounce back, so I'm putting on the jersey to hopefully give them the buff. If they get 40th, sorry, but I truly think that they can make it work, but I also am wondering if this is more of a team that like games 4, 5, and 6 when the bans kind of open up some of these more random comps for team to play. I mean, they're winning, like one of the few wins they got in the split was playing freaking Vantage. Like they just apparently in the messy lobbies with messy bans, they might find some wins there. But I think if we get a lot of these teams that are playing, quickly rotating the zone, playing these controller legends, I do think they are truly going to struggle at this LAN. So I hope we get to see the normal team that we normally see, but a lot of this stuff, I'm very worried about how they'll do coming into this LAN.
Crypto, the great equalizer in terms of making everyone equal. I'm just just kidding, because I feel like I've been preaching crypto being kind of like a crutch for teams for so long, and I feel like this is the third team where we're like, well, crypto, are they just crypto crutches? But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you saw, with these guys, with Unlimit, like obviously Unlimit still ended up having a decent showing, but it felt like they just ran away with Pro League last year, at least at APAC North. Wasn't really like that this year. Gen.G, same thing now. Both of these teams were some of the best teams in terms of using crypto offensively to get that initial advantage in fights. And now with him out game 1, they've had to learn a different way to fight since they no longer have crypto for 3, 4, or 5 games. So I truly do. I know it's become a punchline that we've talked about crypto so many times, but I truly do think that they just have not made that adjustment to not having crypto for so many games. And again, hopefully they will. But even now, they've tried to incorporate Valk, with a Valk nerf now potentially in, where the flying on teams with her drones and be able to land right in their face and get that stun right away. From what it sounds like, you're not going to be able to pull out your weapon as quick and be able to take that fight as quickly anymore. So for a team that also really banked on that, I mean, I already heard Hal saying in his chat, Gen.G get fucked because of this change. So I mean, it's one of those things, man, that they are really going to have to go to the drawing board to figure out what comps are going to work for their offensive play style, or they're really going to have to work on changing how they play the game, get better macro in terms of rotating quicker to zone, stop just kind of floating around on edge, just hoping for an isolated fight, because you're just not going to find it as much at LAN. I mean, we saw them last year when it came down, they had a good midseason playoff. When it came to champs, they struggled in that same sort of situation of trying to find those fights. So I just, they're going to have to either find those comps that work for them without the characters they used to have, or they're going to have to figure out a different way to rotate the map and play the game. Because otherwise, we're just going to see a very average performance at best, I think, for them.
To be fair to them in champs, I did put them in my top 5. So that could be.
I mean, to be fair to you, I also put them in my top 5. So
yeah, I mean,
you don't have to wear that one by yourself.
I'm glad you're hopping on the bandwagon with me on that one. Yeah. I appreciate that a lot. Did you guys have anything else on Gen.G before we get to our final team?
Yeah, I got one quick thing. And I was kind of starting to notice this through the split. But I went back and was looking at Gen.G because I was also like, what's going on with these guys? It felt like they had become like the APAC South team last year. Like them and kind of VK Gaming were like the 2 top dogs. But then obviously VK after their win had, QQ stopped playing and blah, blah. So it felt like Gen.G was like the guys. And obviously they were really bad this split. So I went through, and a lot of their match days, they were very reliant on one major pop-off game. They finished with let's say 38 points, and 25 of those would have came in a single game. And the thing that I noticed that was a recurring theme on those match days was that pop-off game came typically in game 5 or 6 when Gibby got banned. It happened, I think, on 3 separate days where their highest match score, their best game, came immediately after a Gibby ban. And so for whatever reason in this current split, I think it goes back to the electric bubble, it has slowed down their pace really badly when teams are playing Gibby. They just can't seem to figure out how to fight in current Gibby meta. So I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen here, because when we're talking about some of the changes to characters, there was a buff to the shotguns, which makes me think that Gibby's going to probably be played more now, because the PK has that new thing where you can make it so that you get recharge on your shield when you knock somebody. That's pretty crazy. And so I just think there's probably going to be more Gibby.
Was that in today's update?
Yeah.
I read only the character updates. I did not read that. That is bizarre.
I
did see they said something like we're mixing shit up with
the PK.
I did see them say that we're mixing some shit up with hop-ups, but that's got to be
the new hop-up.
that is like that's siphon. That's got to be
Yeah,
the
you get-
fucking most bizarre thing ever.
I don't know how fast it's going to be,
Yeah.
but you get shield regen.
I
once you
wonder if
knock
that
somebody.
stacks with skirmisher perk.
It does. From my understanding, is it does.
That's wicked.
What has
Yeah.
happened?
I can't
to
believe
the sport
Apex
I love?
actually finally added that.
I will say
So-
just the quick point about Jay was saying, especially if we look at the bans we've been seeing so far during scrims, Gibby has not been getting banned at least the first 3 games or so.
Yeah.
So if that current trend does hold true, because I believe it's been basically Crypto, Maggie, Watson, essentially, and Crypto always first, but then those 2 have been next, and Gibby is being played deep into the pool of characters here. It could be that trend that continues at LAN.
And the thing I worry about for a Survivor Series or a Match Point Finals is, let's say the super OP characters like the Crypto get banned early, and then the Ring console characters start coming after that. Does Gibby survive even deeper into those lobbies than maybe a standard group stage set he would? Because, like I said, teams are more desperate in that sort of setting. So, for whatever reason, the Gibby thing, I really don't know if it truly is Gibby, because I haven't watched back all their VODs, but I just think it's very coincidental that when you go scroll through their match days, you see their highest match score, and then you try to find where that game is. It comes almost every single time after Gibby gets banned. And I'm not talking like, because some of their match days, their like highest match score was like 7 points. I'm not talking those. I'm talking the big wins where they have like a 22-point game right after Gibby gets banned. So I think that they just have not found a way to navigate the current Gibby meta, and the way that electrified bubble just completely
Fucking
stalls you
electrified
out. bubble.
bubble, bro. Fuck that
Yeah.
bubble.
Yeah,
I
and the
hate
last number I'll use too, real quick, to kind of go into like their play style and how things usually play out for them. 55% top 10 rate, only converting 46% of those to top 5s. Which again, that is a number that if that holds is very alarming, because again, you're not picking up those placement points. You're solely basing on getting KP. And when there's just so many teams, especially at LAN, that want to rotate fast to zone, you're not going to find that much KP on edge every single game. So, yeah, there's still just a ton of adjustments they need to make before getting into LAN. So we'll see if they're able to do that.
Okay, ladies and gents, our last team of the day, it is Team Flat from NA. They were the 12th seed overall. Nano, Big Louie, and Qzier. Their matchday performances go as follows: 8th, 17th, 6th, 12th, 1st, 15th, and in the regional final, they found themselves in that 9th position. Now, they're down at the bottom of the regional final, in the seeds of NA, but it is a strong region. They found their way to get in here. They squeaked in. Is it possible? What is their ceiling? What is their floor? Is it possible that they make some noise here at EWC? I threw that to everybody because
I think that's the
Yeah,
answer.
Can they make
everybody.
noise? A lot of silence followed. A lot of silence followed.
I mean, I'll just go quick on this. I think a lot of it is going to depend on how much Qzier is able to pop off. I do think if he has a pretty big LAN, they might be able to make at least a little bit of a run. But I do think, once again, when the standard is raised, I do think a lot of the time, most of the time they really did struggle throughout Pro League. Really what sealed them probably qualifying was them getting that first place, on that match day. Because other than that, they only had one other time they were even within the top 6 for their match day performances. So it really wasn't like they blew it, everybody out of the water. They were pretty lucky that obviously Americas gets 13 teams that qualify, in my opinion, because otherwise they wouldn't have qualified in literally any other region. So I just don't really see too much with this team. And we've even seen them on LAN a little bit before, and we really haven't seen the performances pop off. I mean, the stats kind of back that up too. I mean, second least damage dealt amongst any of the teams that Americas is sending. So they can't really even bank on like their 3-3 fighting. So I just don't personally see it for me. I don't know if it's like a bottom 6. I don't know if it's just, they go to the Survivor Series, they really don't make much noise, but I just don't really see it, especially when you get the pool of teams all around the world come together. So,
yeah, I mean, none of these guys have made a finals lobby. Chumba, you had something?
Nano's teams have just, in my opinion, never really had inspiring macro or anything like that. And in Pro League, like, even though they've qualified for some lands here in the past, they've always been like a 20th kind of like almost relegation, but just enough to stay into like pro league team. And so you look at it and like, is Big Louis a roller player? I feel like you always kind of looked at them and they were like triple roller squads where like, you'd be like, okay, well, they're triple rollers, so maybe they could win some fights, but then like, they're not even putting up all that much kills and like winning all that much fights. So yeah, I'm being like really down on them. I don't think that there's a ton going on that when you factor in the other competition that's going to be at the event.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. Jay, did you have anything?
Basically what they said. I mean, just they've never really performed at LAN. They've been on like a couple different iterations of teams. Like Qzir played with Designful, Nano played with like Blinkser and Reeds, and they made that champs through LCQ. And just none of these guys have really able to been. They just never found success. So obviously, it'd be cool if they could, because I'm not like praying on their downfall, but I just really don't believe that they're capable of that kind of a ceiling. Yeah. So I don't expect them to be bottom 6 for the simple fact that they are an America's team and the region. When you got teams like Thieves missing out, it just shows like how deep the region is. But at the same time, like Don said, I think that they were very reliant on that match day win. And otherwise, their floor was pretty average to below average on a typical match day. And so, sure, their ceiling on like an individual day could be high, but that was Pro League. When we get to LAN, are they capable of winning a LAN lobby? I don't think so. And so I think they're probably fighting for the Survivor Series. And then after that, in a 10-game series, and we're talking about consistency, I just don't think they have it. I really don't. So...
Well, ladies and gents, that should just about do it for Group B. That is every single team as we get ready to go into the Esports World Cup. Don't forget to check out Group A if you haven't seen it yet, and stick around because Group C and D are coming very, very soon. Should be right before that. And also, we're going to have a predictions episode. And I just decided this on the spot. I didn't consult the boys at all, but I'm going to say it anyway. The predictions episode, I want to do separate, and I also want it to be full of fan voicemails. I want fans sending in voicemails of like, I need to see my team do this. My favorite thing in the world is watching sports fans be sports fans. I want you to be a sports fan and get delusional if you need to. Delusion is why we still watch sports, man. We have to. So I want it all. I want all the sports fans sending in some voicemails. So send it in.
I want to hear some people who have some unconventional takes, right? If you think Falcons is going to win, I don't care, all right? I don't want to hear.
Don't even send the voicemail. I don't want to hear
like, buddy,
I say this every podcast. I always say Falcons.
Yeah, you're just sending a voicemail that's repeating what Jumba's going to say. You know what I mean? I want to hear, if you're coming out here and you're like, all right, I'm convinced Nemesis are taking it all. Albrelelli's going to return to the mountaintop, and you've got to take. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the people that are like, you're wrong on Dory. Muscle will lead them to victory.
Only if you believe it, though.
But you got to believe it. Don't just fake it.
If you truly believe it. I don't want to hear some like BS. Like if you actually have a take on some team that is not like the Falcons or the Alliances or the Auroras or the NIPs, those are the takes I'd love to hear.
Like I truthfully believe that the Leafs are a playoff contender still.
I root for Bo Nix every year. So like...
a lot of people I'm a rebuild.
The best part about being a sports fan is convincing yourself that whatever you have, no matter how bad it might be, could still be good. And that's what I love. I think we need more of that in Apex. We don't have enough of it.
Sell it to us.
We don't have enough of it.
Every year it's like, we're probably going to suck. But then there's that little devil in the back of my head that's like, but what if? What if we made a run? What if this was the year that we finally broke the curse? And I'm like, nah, not going to happen.
I'm just saying, Team USA won 4-1. They are 100% winning the World Cup. That's
don't give me that.
There
give me
it is.
The Knicks. The Knicks just won, bro.
The
Forget
Knicks.
Bo Knicks. Think about the New York Knicks.
Okay.
Who could be the New York Knicks of Apex? Should we wait till the predictions episode for that?
The New York Knicks of Apex.
Like of this land.
Yeah, we'll wait for that. But anyway, I want the prediction show. It's going to be separate from Group D. Usually we just do it on Group D, and then we're going to do all the voicemails and stuff like that.
A little pod competition potentially headed our way as well. So
that's happening.
Maybe a draft heading our way.
Yeah, that's happening.
Just be ready for some drafts potentially on the show as well.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right, ladies and gents, don't forget to check out those episodes. Stay tuned, stand by. They are coming. They are on the way. Thank you to Jay for hopping on the episode this week for us and standing in. Appreciate it. We love it. We'll see you guys next week for group number C.